Hey guys, Ginger here. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm bringing you guys some remedies for the cursed reading slump. So I was thinking about what I wanted to film for today, and I was having no real big ideas, and then I reminded myself that I've been going through the biggest reading slump in May. So I decided I was going to talk about that. I have only read 2 books in May, and if you watched my TBR, you saw that I have about 9 books that I want to finish this month. So that's probably not going to happen. But I'm hoping to at least read 4 or maybe 5 and, make it at least somewhat worthwhile this month. But I just have not been in a reading mood. And the biggest issue has been that the books that I'm picking up, there's just something off about them and not keeping my interest. And it's not that the plots or anything are not good or that the books aren't good per se, but there's just some aspects to the books that I've picked up this month that is making it very difficult for me to get through them quickly. And one of the reasons I suspect is that it's just slow paced. Another reason is that I've been reading too much of the same genre, and there's just a lot of things that could possibly be at fault for my reading slump this month. But in case you are also going through a reading slump, or you have in the past, or you might in the future, I decided to make a little video today discussing some ways that you can get out of a reading slump and pick up the next book that you're hoping to read. So these aren't like proven ways to get out of a reading slump, but they are ways that I think that can get you in a more pronounced reading mood, or to just pick up a book even if it's not one that's on your TBR. So the first way that I recommend getting out of a reading slump is to pick up an old favorite. If it's a book that you really love and you haven't read it in a while, you know that you're going to like it, and there's no pressure because you already know what's going to happen. But making yourself sit down and read a book is getting back into the groove of, reading. So even though you aren't going to be surprised and it's not maybe one that you have to read, you know what's happening, you're going to enjoy it, and so you're going to want to just enjoy the book again for what it was. And I've done this before, especially with my Warriors books. If I know that I'm not feeling in the mood to pick up something new, or I'm just not feeling like reading at all, I know that if I dive back into a world that I love, that I will get back into the process of reading a book and, discovering a new adventure and journey. And a lot of times it makes me want to pick up another book afterwards because I have refreshed my brain into being like, this is what a book does to you. So that is one way to do it. The second way that I would recommend is to pick up a short read, because a lot of times you feel intimidated. Like, I know I'm intimidated to read The Great Hunt because this is over 800 pages and I really want to read it, but this is such a big book and I know it's going to be dense and it's a fantasy. So I would suggest picking up a shorter book. And, a shorter book could be something like The Giver, which is by Lois Lowry, and this is only 220 pages and the words are very big. This is very quick to get through, and that way you're not frustrated about page count and getting through a giant book. You know that you have a small little journey to take, and there's less pressure to be overwhelmed by the number of pages. So this is especially good if you are sitting down for an afternoon to read, because there is a chance that if you really enjoy it, you can get through it. Or if you are just trying to get back in the swing of things, you just have a small little read to ease back into the other books on your TBR perhaps. The third and the fourth ways kind of go hand in hand in the idea, but they are different genres. I know for me, a lot of times I get into a reading slump because I am reading a lot of high fantasy novels. And so in this aspect, high fantasy novels are a lot to digest with the world, with a lot of times the writing and a lot of times the length. So if I feel that I am just having a hard time with the slow burn world building or with understanding the character development or the laws or whatever is going on in the book, I usually tend to pick up a thriller. So the latest thriller that I read, because I was having trouble getting into my TBR, was The Night Before by Wendy Walker. And this I was one of my most anticipated thrillers, but I tend to go through thrillers really quickly, and most thrillers out there are fast-paced because thrillers are trying to keep you on the edge of your seat, trying to get you to want to find out what is going on. So they are a book that is going to go by quickly and a lot of times will keep your attention throughout, and they don't waste much time on the initial depth or having a slow-paced beginning. I'm not saying every thriller does not do that, but most of the time if you pick up a generic thriller, they are going to keep you interested throughout the book because that is what they are written to do. So if you're having trouble with a slow burn type of read problem like I have personally had recently, I would recommend picking up a thriller to get you out of that very dense world building atmosphere and get you into something that's fast paced and make you feel a little more accomplished, because I know for me, since thrillers go by so quickly, I can get another book done and feel accomplished that I have added the books finished in the month. So even though I might be variating a little bit, I still feel good about myself because I did finish a book, even though it might not have been the one I originally started. And moving on then to number 4, if you aren't really a fantasy reader, try a contemporary, and more so a nice light YA contemporary, such as To All the Boys I Loved Before, or what else do I have that's light? Or The Selection. Those are really light. I guess The Selection's kind of a fantasy, but it has a lot of contemporary elements with the romance, with the lightheartedness, and it's short. And the not Summer I Turned Pretty, but another one that I could recommend. To All the Boys I Loved Before is a very realistic contemporary with romance elements, and a lot of times they tend to go by quickly because of the romance and the general just way that a lot of YA contemporaries are written. There are some hard-hitting ones that, might not be as helpful for getting into a reading mood. I know, especially for me, if something is hard-hitting, a lot of times it takes me even longer to want to pick up something afterwards because I am still thinking about what happened. But lighthearted contemporaries are also usually a good way to get out of a reading slump. And even if they're not something that you usually read, it's always cool to try one and see if they are something that you can read quickly. And the 5th and final thing I'm going to talk about is vary from your TBR. This is especially good for those of you on BookTube because a lot of times we narrow down to a pile or a general little group of books that we plan to read for the month. But sometimes things just don't work out, and it's important to not force yourself to read those books if you are finding that you're just not getting into them or they're not necessarily what you're in the mood for that month. Luckily for me, I did have a few thrillers on my TBR for this month, even though Zach picked out a lot of high fantasies as well. So when I was starting some of the books like Storm Dancer and Firestarter, I'm super interested in them and the writing style is good, but the slow burn build has been what was getting to me and making it hard for me to read faster and to finish books. So picking up a different book that might not have been on my TBR or at the top of my TBR was helpful for me to get out of that slump and to read more books. So don't be afraid to do this, and also don't be afraid to DNF books. If you have a book that you are just not getting into, put it aside for another day. You don't have to force yourself to finish them, because a lot of times, I know for me, if I'm forcing myself to read it, I tend to read slower, and then I feel like I can't finish the book. And sometimes that makes me give it less of a rating than maybe it deserves, because the mood that I am in while I'm reading is negative. So just know mostly what is good for you. What is your love of books surrounded by? What is your favorite type of book? I know that I love fantasies, and I'm sure a lot of you do too, but sometimes you just have to step away and read something else so you can get back into that world. So let me know in the comments below what some of your tips for reading slumps are, and if any of these were helpful to you guys. Also, if you guys are struggling with a reading slump like I am, I would love to hear about it because I don't like feeling like I'm the only one, especially when everyone is doing so great with their wrap-ups, and I know that I'm not going to be this coming month. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to see more of my content in the future. And until that future, I will see you guys then. Bye!